I just watched a Big Think video with Sam Harris. We'll see if we can get to this video without too much of that sawing. No, I don't know what people are always sawing around here. Is that what that sound is? A saw? Oh, maybe I can move somewhere. Wasted 30 seconds. Should I post this? It's more authentic if I post this 30 seconds of pointless excuse making for the noise. But no one cares about these videos anyway, right? That's supposed to be the liberating moment when no one cares. I can just post whatever. That's a good angle. So I sometimes think that people I've made a lot of it seems like a theme that I've made over the year. They're probably on private now because, yeah, I don't know. We won't get into the whole explanation on why I eventually take down my videos. But in the past, I'd make videos about Sam Harris being dishonest. And it sounds like I'm a Sam Harris hater. But I'm really not. It's more like because I actually do have, I'd say, a degree of respect for his intellectual abilities. I always just assume he's being sort of naive or dishonest. Naive's not the right word. There's something that I don't trust when he says things that don't make sense, like about free will stuff that I've talked about, where we don't have free will, but yet he wants to hold people morally responsible and kind of shame them if they don't agree with his moral conclusions based on there being no free will. But this video, it's kind of, I would sum it up as being like, if the world was just a more rational place and we have a good, healthy dialogue and separate fact from fiction, the world can be a better place type of bullshit. And I think there's, we all live in our bubbles, right? And we see the world through those bubbles. But I guess the Sam Harris bubble is one of, he comes off as someone who, and this is, I would say it's a compliment in a way, right? Someone who has it together. He seems generally content. I mean, we all have, I don't know what goes on in his personal life, sponsored by Fiji. I don't know what goes on in his personal life, but pretty sure he's married and yeah, he's well-to-do and successful, all these things, right? And he's not really looking or fully understanding that, I don't know that we live in a world anymore about this sort of, we almost have to get away from the sort of left versus right or rational versus irrational, whatever. I think what might actually be a more appropriate way in some sense to start looking at sort of human behavior, even connecting it to sort of whatever, politics, morality, and so on. I think we have content people versus discontent people. I almost wonder in a lot of ways if, it's been understated the overlap between people who would, at least originally, things have changed over the last, 10, 15 years, but originally would have found an appeal in Bernie Sanders and found an appeal in Donald Trump. And a lot of people might not get that at all. Like, what? There's nothing in common there. And, one way to frame that is people who are content with the status quo versus discontent. And while people might have different solutions how to make themselves more content or make society better and all that, it really sort of is like I just think that might be more of the divide. People who pretty much are okay with how things are, they have the things that they want in life more or less, right? We all are seemingly these desire machines, can't get enough and prone to suffering and discontentment. There do seem to be people who, at least maybe just on the surface, but I think it's beyond that, they're more or less okay with things. They're doing okay. Yeah, they would change this or that about their job or whatever, but they're like, oh, they have the life is beautiful sort of perspective, and they're just working on some They just need some self-growth books or videos, and they'll get the remaining quirks out. And then there's people that are just not happy with the way things are, and people might gravitate to different ideas. And maybe, I would say Sam Harris's idea in this Big Think video is that he might argue, well, even if you're discontent, what are the right and wrong ways? There's an objectively right way to solve this problem. But even if we were to say that that's true, even if I were to say it's true, which I'm not sure that it is, I would say it's true on an individual level, not a cultural level, meaning not all solutions work for all people, and it doesn't have to do with, and to some degree, there's problems with rational sort of solutions, right? If you got a disease and a medication really works and the side effects are basically non-existent, which how often is that the case, but right, there's a solution to that problem. But the bigger sort of things that Sam Harris seems to be getting at, almost like in the existential sense, like what we care about, it's back to the emotional differences in how people think and perceive the world. I mean, even if you look at it in terms of the content versus discontent, you could put two people in a sort of similar situation, and they might have a totally different perception on if this is good or not, right? You put them in a certain house with a certain romantic partner and a certain income. Someone might be on top of the world. Some people might see it as a prison sentence. Yeah, so people don't, not everyone, this is the most simple way to put it, is people don't all care about the same things. They're not emotionally moved by the same things. To some people, it's like some guy hurt them in some way, and their entire political ideology and agenda is going to be based on this guy in this context hurt them. Which side seems to be more sort of empathetic to that dynamic? And then from there, they sort of build, and they sort of look for the evidence to sort of sympathize with all the positions of that team. And then it can work in reverse, right, to the other side. They have this experience, that experience. And through these experiences, whatever has the most emotional impact, people try to sort of conform an identity. They conform to these different sort of ideologies, agendas, political positions, worldviews, right? So it's not about, it's like when someone is very unhappy because of X, there's this false assumption that rationality is going to save the day, or it's all about, is it fake news? Do they have the right information? Are they just not seeing the picture correctly? And while it is true that there might be certain actions that have a higher chance than others, not might be, I'm sure definitely true, right? That's like putting your head in an oven we can do probably an analysis to feel as safe as we can be, that's going to be less likely to lead you to happiness than, let's say, going on a walk on the ocean, by the ocean. So yeah, I think we can, whether we call it objective or not, we can have an assessment on what's more likely to lead to positive outcomes, or whatever the outcomes that we're looking to get. But that being said, it might not be something about rationality, right? It might be that the way this thing makes me feel, right? And that's the thing that we're sort of, it's like, it seems like so many intellectual thinkers want to ignore that, because in a way it sort of diminishes their own value, right? Because if their skill set is intellectualizing, it's a little bit diminishing if you say, well, your value to society, okay, you can do some things, if you can come up with a medicine, or if you can invent something that has value, but sort of your intellectualizing, philosophizing, book writing might have limited value. Well, of course, that's going to be the ultimate sort of personal bias against that idea, because it diminishes their whole thing, right? If their whole thing is being a philosopher, writing books and so on, and you're saying, hey, actually, man, it's about feelings, man. People like things, they don't like things. I mean, you take stuff like trans stuff, for example, not to get into a hot topic, but let's go there. People feel a certain way. Now we can analyze this, are they having false information? But at the end of the day, like, certain things make people uncomfortable, and it's not necessarily always based on are they rational or not, right? I mean, look at style. I mean, people have these ideas like, right, don't judge people for this, don't judge, but almost everyone thinks it's okay. Like, people ridicule me all the time, whether it's based on my hair, it could be my glasses, my facial hair, what clothes I'm wearing, right? And it's almost like universally agreed upon that having these sort of opinions about, oh, but don't have a weird feeling about sort of how someone identifies in this way or dresses up in this way or says these things or looks or this, that way. And I mean, I'm prone to agree on that in the sense of more or less generally leave people alone. As long as someone's not overtly hurting someone, like, kind of fuck off, So that's why I don't have a problem with people dressing however they want to dress or calling themselves whatever. Now, sometimes it extends beyond that, right? Like if you're getting into sort of, if we're talking about the trans stuff, like sports and all that, but we don't need to go there. But the point is that when it comes to things like I said, like style, now people might not think that's not as serious as these other issues, but it does show the reality of sort of how we view things, human nature, what we find acceptable, or it's a little bit of a contradiction, right? Don't judge people for this, but I will judge people arbitrarily if I think that their glasses are ugly or that their hair is stupid or they need a comb or whatever, right? And this is just all kind of a way of circling back to the point of it's all feelings. It's all feelings, it's all emotions. If you meet someone who happens to have a very similar personality, sort of a similar genetic makeup and childhood and values and all these things, yes, maybe sometimes you just got to get them to the right argument that they haven't, been in contact with. Oh, I had this view on abortion. I just didn't realize. Oh, okay. Now it all makes. I didn't care about the environment before, but now I do. Now that you mentioned CO2 levels and whatever. But for the most part, it's like, take all these issues, right? In this last election, how much talk was there about homeless people? I didn't hear it talked about too much. I'm sure you could find clips where it was, but right, because no one gives a fuck, right? I know some people, you do, but you know what I mean? Or how are we going to make sure that there's fewer wrongfully convicted people in jail? Or maybe jail, a lot of time it's inhumane the way people are treated in jail. And we can sort of bake into the equation even that there's always going to be some innocent people in jail. So why don't we sort of, since that's probably inevitable, something we should definitely change, maybe we should make the conditions there a little bit more humane, right? But it's just, if it's not what the culture sweeps up as something to be passionate about, then it's just not talked about. And you might even intuitively, like, your reaction, well, those aren't the serious issues. Abortion is the big issue. Trans stuff or taxes or whatever, pick your thing. It's almost like you're so brainwashed that whatever the stuff is talked about are the things that matter, that you probably have this instinctual now sort of reaction. Maybe not instinctual, might not be the right word, but just this instant reaction of like, oh, whatever issue I bring up that's not really talked about politically, oh, that's not that serious of a thing. So I guess it's all to say that it's not about rationality. That's why I always make the point about smart people that we all can agree are smart, that you might think have stupid or sort of immoral positions or whatever. People aren't what we want them to be, assuming we want them to be in agreement with us, or that it's all about the quest for truth, and if we all pursue that, we all land in the same spot. We like some things, we don't like some things, and these sounds that come out of our mouths have a somewhat limited ability, especially on an individual level, to change that. People do seem to get swept away with the culture, so I guess you can sort of try to change, you try to influence the culture in a way that people become brainwashed in the way that you want them to be. But it's not going to be based on truth. It's going to be based on following the crowd, which is what people do, for better or worse.